Over the years, flip and foldable smartphones have become a lot more popular. The first few models are undoubtedly expensive. I mean, they were made by some of the biggest names in the market after all, Samsung. But recently, other brands have joined the flip and foldable market, and as a result, they're now a lot more affordable. Today, we're going to be looking at two of the newest and most affordable flip phones on the market, the TECNO Phantom V Flip 2 and the Infinix ZERO Flip. TECNO already made waves last year by offering one of the most affordable flip phones with the Phantom V Flip, and this time, we're looking at the new Phantom V Flip 2. As for its opponent, it's a newcomer in the segment, the Infinix ZERO Flip, the brand's first ever flip smartphone. I mean, it's also their first ever foldable smartphone. Despite being new and even more affordable than the TECNO, how does it stack up against the original budget-friendly foldable? Well, I'm Jose from Yugatech, and today let's find out in this comparison video between the TECNO Phantom V Flip 2 and the Infinix ZERO Flip. And again, if you're wondering why I don't have the units, well, ask Earl. He has the units. Anyway, let's get the show started. So roll that OBB. Let's start off with the design of the phones. Both the TECNO Phantom V Flip 2 and the Infinix ZERO Flip look strikingly similar. If you look at the cover screen alone, it's actually hard to tell one from the other. On this cover screen, both phones feature a dual main camera with a slim LED flash on the lower right side. Even the design of the flash is eerily similar. The screen size is similar too, taking up most of the upper half of the clamshell. But it's even more interesting that both phones have similar dimensions and weight. They're both 7.64mm thin when unfolded and 16.04mm thin when folded. As for the weight, they're similar too, with the Infinix weighing 195 grams while the TECNO weighs 196 grams. That 1 gram difference is something you wouldn't notice anymore, by the way. The button layout and others are quite similar too. As for the frame, they're both made out of aluminum. Perhaps the biggest telltale sign to distinguish these two phones would be the back cover or the lower half of the phone, and the design on the hinge as well. The hinge on the Infinix ZERO Flip has a bit more style to it, with the fake screw design sandwiching the Infinix logo. As for the Phantom V Flip 2, you have a more minimalist Phantom logo alone at the center. Given how similar both phones are, it makes me wonder if one copied the other. But what do you think? There's no mention of IP ratings also for either of these phones. But given that they are so similar in terms of design and construction, I'll have to say it is a tie for both the Infinix ZERO Flip and the Phantom V Flip 2. But it's not just the design and styling of the phones that are similar. The displays are almost identical on paper too. Both the TECNO Phantom V Flip 2 and the Infinix ZERO Flip feature a 3.64-inch AMOLED panel with the same 1056 by 1066 resolution. Infinix says their cover screen features 120Hz refresh rate and even 1100 nits of peak brightness, but there's no mention on the TECNO. Based on our experience and review, which TY did, which you can watch here, the cover screen of the Phantom V Flip 2 is very smooth too, and it can get really bright as well. The main difference between the cover screen is the level of protection. On the Infinix ZERO Flip, the cover screen is protected by Corning Gorilla Glass Victus 2, while the Phantom V Flip 2 only comes with standard Corning Gorilla Glass, at least that's what they say on their website. As for the main display, well, it's a similar story. Both phones feature a large 6.9-inch foldable LTPO AMOLED display with 120Hz refresh rate. Again, TECNO is leaving out details regarding how bright the main display is, but Infinix says theirs can reach a maximum of 1400 nits. The borders on both phones are slim and are great for watching videos or even playing games. As for the crease, well, it's quite noticeable on both phones. However, I wouldn't say that the crease on one phone is more noticeable than the other, since they're very much equal. Whichever phone you pick, you will definitely enjoy watching videos on the nice main display, especially with the beautiful LTPO OLED panel. The crease isn't that noticeable, especially when the phone is directly in front of you. However, even with the nice viewing angles, the display can be somewhat a bit distorted when you view the phone from the sides because of the crease. As for the speakers, both phones do have high-res support, but interestingly, the Infinix is tuned by JBL, while the TECNO has Dolby Atmos. Despite having different tuning, the ZERO Flip doesn't seem to have the advantage over the Phantom V Flip 2 or vice versa. They sound equally decent, and more importantly, they are loud, which does help with your viewing experience and, more importantly, gaming experience. Again, with how similar the two phones are, it's another tie this round. Will it be like this for the rest of the compare? Well, Let's find out with the cameras of both of these phones. On paper, the cameras of the two phones are identical too. The TECNO Phantom V Flip 2 and the Infinix ZERO Flip both feature dual 50 megapixel rear shooters, a 50 megapixel wide and a 50 megapixel ultra wide. As for videos, both phones can record up to a maximum of 4K at 30 FPS. The main difference between the two phones is the front camera, or should I say selfie camera, located on the main screen. The one in the Infinix is a 50 megapixel shooter, while the TECNO only has a 32 megapixel shooter. So it's in selfies where we should see a big difference. But when you're using the main camera, it should be more or less the same, right? Well, that's not exactly the case. The Phantom V Flip 2 appears to have the advantage here in terms of output in both photo and video. The images come out sharp and there's really good contrast too. As for the colors, they're not too saturated either and they come out looking a bit more natural. If you're not too picky, you can immediately upload these to social media without the need to edit them any further. While the Infinix ZERO Flip does take decent images, the quality doesn't seem to be as great as the one captured by the Phantom V Flip 2. There's a lot more noticeable grain, especially in low light, and the subject isn't as sharp either. But what it does have is a lot more contrast, giving it a more moody feel and helping to hide the imperfections of the photo. Still, the difference in quality of the photo is very noticeable. As for the video, it's a similar story too. The videos taken by the Infinix ZERO Flip becomes very choppy since we recorded all of these videos in camcorder mode. I mean, that is one of the coolest ways to shoot video with a flip phone after all. At first, we thought it was only during the recording, but it seems to have carried over to the actual recording, which you're going to see here. In comparison, the TECNO Phantom V Flip 2 did not have any issues whatsoever capturing video in camcorder mode. In terms of quality, it's similar to what you would find in the images. With that, it's safe to say that the TECNO Phantom V Flip 2 captures images and videos better than the Infinix ZERO Flip, taking its first point in this comparison. Now, after seeing the results of the camera segment, we can say that having the same specs on paper doesn't necessarily mean similar results. And it's a similar story to the performance of both of these phones. In terms of hardware, both the TECNO Phantom V Flip 2 and the Infinix ZERO Flip are powered by the same MediaTek Dimensity 8020 chipset. Both phones come with 8GB of RAM and 8GB of expandable RAM for a total of 16GB. As for storage, our review units of the Infinix came with 512GB, while the TECNO only has 256GB. No micro SD slot here either to expand storage further. So since they have the same chipset, you can expect identical benchmark scores, right? Well, it's similar, but one phone did have a slight advantage over the other, depending on the benchmarks. On Antutu, the Infinix ZERO Flip scored higher with almost 800,000 points, while the Phantom V Flip 2 only scored around 765,000. It's a similar story when you check the Geekbench results. Interestingly though, the Phantom V Flip 2 does have higher scores and FPS in 3D Mark Wildlife and even PC Mark Work 3.0 performance. They are very evenly matched, but one phone does perform in some aspects better than the other. Now, the difference is not that big, but it does show that despite having the same chipset and RAM, there will still be differences in performance. However, at the end of the day, that's just all on paper and the numbers. In real life, the difference is barely noticeable. Both phones can play almost any game you throw at it, including heavy graphic-intensive titles without any issues whatsoever. These two phones can run Genshin and Honkai Star Rail even on the highest setting, but you will experience the occasional lag and frame rate drops, so we recommend setting it to medium along with 60 FPS. Not surprisingly, both phones also heated up after a while, but it did not affect the gameplay. For everyday use, you can expect these phones to handle all of the tasks you can think of without any issues whatsoever. So even though the Infinix does have higher scores in some benchmarks, it's hard to say that one performs better than the other. I mean, they pretty much have the same chipset and they perform almost evenly. So with that, we have another tie for this round. Finally, we have to talk about the battery, and just as you guessed, both phones are the same here as well. The Infinix ZERO Flip and the TECNO Phantom V Flip 2 both have a 4720 mAh battery and even the same 70-watt fast charging rate. Considering how this comparison has been going so far, I expected more or less the same results for both of these phones. However, it seems that the TECNO has the better battery management as compared to the Infinix. The Phantom V Flip 2 managed to last 12 hours and 48 minutes in PC Mark's Work 3.0 battery test. In comparison, the Infinix ZERO Flip only scored 10 hours and 8 minutes in the same test. That's almost a 3-hour difference in battery life. Considering they're flip phones, anything more than 9 hours on PC Mark is already impressive. But still, it seems TECNO has done something software-wise to make their phone last a bit longer than the Infinix competition. With this, the TECNO Phantom V Flip 2 takes another point in this comparison, making it 2-0. See what I did there? Yeah, 2-0. Okay, anyway. Now let's talk about other features too. For this compare, we have to talk about the OS, of course, and both phones run on Android 14 out of the box. The TECNO Phantom V Flip 2 is skinned with iOS 14.5, while the Infinix ZERO Flip is skinned with XOS. Thankfully, both of these phones don't have a lot of bloatware out of the box, similar to their more affordable counterparts. Instead, you get a bunch of cool features suited for foldable smartphones, such as allowing users to hold end phones at a 90-degree angle. And I'm not just talking about camcorder mode. However, as a personal preference, I do like the feel of iOS better than XOS based on user experience alone. However, I'm sure gamers out there would prefer the game boost features found on the Infinix. Overall, I think it's all up to personal preference. Now that we've thoroughly discussed both of these phones, overall there's no doubt these two phones are almost identical. It's no surprise too, since Infinix and TECNO are under the same corporate umbrella. But in terms of real-world use, one does stand out against the other, and that's the TECNO Phantom V Flip 2. No doubt about it, it's packaged better with iOS along with everything else. But then again, we have yet to talk about the price, which is something that might sway buyers to the Infinix ZERO Flip. Between the two, the more affordable model is the Infinix ZERO Flip, which retails at 29,999 pesos for the 8 plus 512GB variant. In comparison, the TECNO Phantom V Flip 2 starts at 34,999 pesos for the 8 plus 256GB variant. That's a 5,000 peso difference for what is essentially the same phone, and you also get bigger storage on the ZERO Flip. With that, I'm sure some of you might be more interested in the Infinix ZERO's Flip, especially if you're on a budget. I mean, it is hard to find another flip phone for under 30,000 pesos. But if you want the better user feel and camera, along with a longer battery life, there's no doubt the Phantom V Flip 2 should be your choice. But what do you think of these two phones? For this comparison video, are you team Infinix or are you team TECNO? Whatever the case, share your thoughts in the comments down below. And of course, if you found this video informative or enjoyed it at the very least, please do drop a like and subscribe to watch more. Also, don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms, that's Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok. And of course, visit yugatech.com to stay updated with the latest tech news and reviews. Also, speaking of reviews, if you want to read our full reviews on both of these phones, you can check them out now live on the Yugatech website. You can also drop a comment down below to remind Earl to bring the phones next time so you guys won't be seeing a box. Anyways, it's been Jose, and I'll see you guys next time. Happy holidays.